Welcome to Youthology on AUK Radio, brought to you by Attentive. I will be your host today, Kat. It's very nice to be back on Youthology. And today's show, I am joined by Maria, the senior producer and at Revoluton Arts, and we'll be exploring how Revoluton Arts plays a role in Luton. So firstly, Maria, can you introduce yourself?
Yes.
For our audience.
Yeah, of course. Hi, Kat. Thanks so much for having me on the show. Yes, as you said, my name's Maria. I'm a producer and facilitator and work across the art sector. Mainly my background's in theatre. And I'm currently, as you said, senior producer at Revoluton Arts. We're based over in Marsh Farm area, but we also do a lot of work in Bury Park, Farley Hill, and we've got a big project coming to the town centre next week as well.
Okay, so I hope that we'll hear more about that as we go on. So before we go into Revoluton Art, can you tell me a bit about yourself? What's your hobbies? Like, what do you enjoy? What are you passionate about?
Yeah, sure. So I guess I wouldn't be doing the career that I did if I wasn't passionate about the arts and the sector. And I originally trained as a dancer. And I still love dance. I still love to dance. I'm a qualified dance teacher, did that for a while. To me, when you can be creative and combine that with exercise and movement, like I absolutely love that. That's a real kind of passion of mine. But also I wouldn't be able to cope if I spent all my free time doing stuff related to my job. So I also massively enjoy watching sport because it's really got nothing to do, or on the surface of it, it's got nothing to do with what I do day to day. But there are lots of really useful similarities in like the way a kind of community football club runs to how an arts organisation might connect with their communities. And also I think the real kind of drive and determination that you see with sports people and their mindsets and stuff is something that everyone can learn from, right? And whenever you're kind of pushing towards excellence, and the arts is certainly a field where you're always looking to kind of try new things, create new approaches, I feel like sport is a really good arena to kind of step into, learn from, but also just disconnect from my day-to-day as well.
Yeah, I actually watched the David Beckham documentary.
Did you?
And that's the first time I think I saw footballers like they really have a real drive. And, you know, I mean, he was working hard since he was very young, and like a lot of people give him hate.
Yeah, it happens a lot, doesn't it? And I think it can be really easy to get a one-sided view of anyone, right? But especially sports people, where they have a particular kind of profile in the media. But I love documentaries like so Sunderland Till I Die is a really good one about how the football club Sunderland kind of like actually got relegated from the Premier League, or like the kind of story behind that. There's also Drive to Survive, all about Formula One and their determination and what they do behind the scenes. And like you said, it's what you see on the surface is such a small part of the prep and the work they put in. And yeah, there's always stuff to be learned, and also it's entertaining and fun as well.
It is entertaining when you kind of understand it more.
That's it.
Yeah. Like, because there's like technique in everything, I think.
100%.
And I was going to ask, what type of dance do you do?
So I trained in all types of dance that you can kind of do as an individual. So what I mean by that is anything you see on Strictly Come Dancing, I didn't do.
Okay.
So that's all partner dancing, right? So I did ballet, jazz, tap, contemporary, hip hop, street, modern, all of that kind of side of things. So anything that you either do as an individual or you'll do with like a big troupe of dancers. And yeah, I absolutely loved the discipline of dance and the kind of routine, the structure of it, and you can really measure improvements quite quickly and easily. It's quite whereas when you're kind of working in theatre or in drama, it's a much harder to kind of measure, oh, you performed this role better, or that character was more believable. All of these things are a little bit more intangible. Whereas if you can kick your leg higher, or you can kind of do a routine that's more complicated, those are things which you can quite easily point to and be like, oh yeah, I'm getting somewhere, I'm moving forward.
Like, you can always get better at it.
That's it.
So let's go a bit into Revoluton Arts.
Yeah, sure.
So can you provide us an overview of Revoluton Arts, who you are and what you do?
Yes, I will certainly do my best. I'll inevitably forget something, but I'll do my best. So, we're Revoluton Arts, so we're a Luton-based arts organisation, and we basically work with artists and communities across a range of art forms and disciplines to produce creative work that basically promotes social change and positive futures. So we provide support, resource, and mentoring to local artists and emerging creative practitioners, and facilitate pathways for people to basically make a career happen in the arts. But in addition to that, we're not just about growing things in Luton, we're also about bringing international work to Luton as well. So it's all about that exchange between work that's come from Luton going out into the world and work that's kind of had a previous life elsewhere in the world coming to Luton, in a way that kind of is a real dynamic creative exchange. We've got 3 programs or program strands. So we've got commissions and partnerships, which is a combination of that international work and locally grown work, where we're kind of putting money directly in people's hands to make projects happen and kind of holding their hand through that process. We've then got our residencies programme, which is our long-running work in our 3 key areas, so Marsh Farm, Farley Hill and Bury Park. And then we've got our capacity building programme, which is all about ensuring that, you know, Lutonian talent gets to find their place within the creative industries. So that involves our young people's programme, but also our producer hub, which I'm sure we might talk more about later.
Yeah, that sounds really great. So what kind of organizations and age range do Revoluton target?
Yeah, sure. So our young people's program is for young people aged 16 to 30. And it's really challenging. I've worked in a lot of organisations where we've had young people's programs, and there's no perfect age bracket to put on anything. It's really, really tricky because obviously if you're interested in a career in the arts, you might say, there's an argument to say, like, you know, let's start our program at 14 because that's when you're picking options, or let's start at 12 so that you can get really interested before you pick your options, and then you pick your options, you might pick an art subject and you can kind of go from there. But the reason we picked 16 is really because where we're at as an organisation is we really want to be supporting people's transition into the professional realm of the arts sector, and 16 is an age where you know, you're more able to do that, and also certain contracts are open to you as well. And the reason our young people's programme kind of goes on until 30 rather than maybe ending at 25, which quite a lot of programmes do, is because creative career journeys are not straightforward. They take time. It's a complicated industry to crack, and also it may well be that the first role you think you want within the industry isn't the one that's right for you, or actually you find a role in the industry that is a good starting point, but it takes you a while to get your own work off the ground. So yeah, 16 to 30 is our young people's programme. Beyond that, in our residency locations, our work is mostly 18 plus, but we do have set projects which support children and families. So for instance, we've got a big show coming to Luton. It's a parade of giant illuminated puppets coming to Luton next Thursday. And we've been running lots of workshops for primary school aged children where they've made their own puppets. So we've been working with Beach Hill Primary School in Bury Park to do that, but also we've been at the mall, we've been taking over their centre square space and making it very messy with all sorts of craft material. So really it's all age ranges, but our young people's programme, 16 to 30.
Okay, so it sounds like anyone can really get involved in different ways. So for the young people's program, which is 16 to 30, can they join at any age range between 16 to 30?
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
So you don't have to be like, oh, I'm 17, I've missed the boat. Not at all. Anyone at any age within that bracket is welcome, absolutely.
So you mentioned about the project happening next week, and you also mentioned how you work internationally to help artists come out of Luton. Can you tell me about any achievements or milestones that have happened so far with Revoluton?
Yeah, so I mean, Revoluton has been going since 2015. Now, I've only been with Revoluton since this year, so anything I talk about is very, like, I cannot take any credit for it. But what I think has been really nice to see is that some of the biggest festivals that are happening in Luton today, so Diwali in Luton and East Fest, which are all about not just celebrating those occasions or communities that would be traditionally connected to them, but celebrating all of the art forms that kind of exist within all of Luton's neighbourhoods. Those have become real kind of opportunities where annually international artists come over, but they grew from our producer hub that I mentioned earlier. So basically what happened was the brilliant producers came to our producer hub event with the seed of an idea, and through our producer hub we're able to access one-to-one support over a number of years to really kind of first of all test and pilot those events, and then grow them to a level where international artists are making the commitment to come over to Luton and perform at those on a regular basis. And also every year Lutonian artists are getting the opportunity to perform at those events, and inevitably then those international artists are in the audience able to see just what a brilliant range of talent is, you know, in Luton, and, you know, ready to kind of be exported out to the world.
That's really amazing. So can you explain a bit more how these international artists are contacted? Like how do
Yeah.
they find, like how do you find them, should I say?
Yeah, so there's a kind of there's a few different ways. So I guess as Revoluton, what's different about us compared to some arts organisations is that our staff team don't make every single creative decision that we have across our projects, because we work in a co-creative way with local artists or communities. So for instance, if we are working on a particular project, we will either, or in some cases both of these options will happen, we'll get a Lutonian artist on board and we will kind of be supporting them, but it'll be their ideas that are kind of driving the creative process. So it'd be them who would be identifying international artists they may or may not want to work with. It'd be them who are kind of really steering the process according to their interests and the things that excite them. So sometimes we're really taking a back seat when it comes to creative decisions. There's also sort of a secondary scenario where we might actually be really driving the program, but that the program will always have moments where it's really shaped and reshaped and kind of transformed by the participants who take part in it. So it's really important for us that we're able to honour the kind of creative processes that our work goes on. So that would mean that we might go into a project with some vague ideas of who we might want to approach, whether they be international or whether they be local, but actually we always have to build in time and processes where we can really shift and adapt those kind of assumptions we bring to the table around what is then offered by the participants who are taking part. So there's not really a straightforward this is the way that it works. It's quite a conversation, and it's an ongoing process that looks slightly different for across all of our projects. I guess the final thing to mention is that we obviously have to work a lot in partnership, and so sometimes who we work with internationally is also completely out of our hands, because it might be down to a particular partnership that we've forged as well. But then, you know, if we're making when we're kind of making and building partnerships, the whole point of being strategic with those is that that puts us in a position where we're more likely to work with partners who are going to bring on board international artists that are going to share our vision, share our values, and really want to put what's best for Luton at the heart of everything that we're doing.
And are these participants involved? Are they always people who will sign up to Revoluton, or will you find them sometimes?
Again, there's a little bit of a variety across them. So on our young people's program, the sign up process is really simple and straightforward. So for instance, with our mic drop masterclasses, which is a project that we run on the last Wednesday of every month, there is always a live sign up form that any young person aged 16 to 30 who either lives, learns or earns in Luton can literally just fill in their details. It takes about 3 minutes, and then they've got themselves a place secured for our workshops. So that's very much about us making sure the word goes out to young people, and that they can self register for those opportunities and put themselves forward. With our residencies work, it can look a little bit different. So, for instance, we earlier in the year worked with brilliant local artist Amy Ricks to run a street art project up in Farley Hill. And what's happened there with the project is that the pillars in front of the Whippley Way Ring shops have all been redone with designs that were kind of co-created and co-designed with members of the local community. But the way we did that wasn't people signing up to workshops. That was us identifying a whole different range of partners who were already running activities where we could visit them across the length of... We actually managed to fit it all in on one day, where we got over 122 people across different sites going, I like this about the design. You need to make sure you've got this. It wouldn't be a Farley Hill pillar if there wasn't, parrots mentioned was one of the things. So it looks slightly different. With our young people's program, it's much more about us putting the information out there, young people putting themselves forward. And with our residencies program, it can look a lot different, where we're kind of visiting sites where existing things are going on and kind of injecting a bit of arts into the process.
That's really so. Do you work mostly around Luton with these kind of residency projects? And do you aspire to do more stuff like what you've done at Stockwood?
Yeah, around Farley. Sure.
Around Farley,
yeah.
yes.
So we are a proudly Luton-based organisation. So really, we exist to serve Luton and amplify the brilliant creativity and the range of creative practices that exist here. So everything we do needs to have a benefit for Luton in some way, even if it is working with an international artist. So for instance, we're working with a brilliant dance artist, Jonna Bro, who's internationally acclaimed, is originally from Brazil, has recently been doing work abroad, but has a long-rooted connection to Luton and really feels at home here, and is really passionate about making projects happen here. Now, that's where we're interested. If there wasn't any kind of connection to Luton or any interest in connecting to Luton, then it doesn't work for us as an organisation, because Luton's what we're all about. But in terms of whether we're interested in doing similar projects to the one that existed in Farley, that project was actually part of our Revoluton Associates programme. So Revoluton Associates is something that we run every 3 months, and we get a new cohort of local artists on board and give them a £5,000 commission. And they receive support from our community producers and myself to put on a project that they think is going to deliver impact and get communities involved in different areas of Luton. And we've just come to the end of our first cohort, and we're currently recruiting for our second cohort, including recruiting for a new Revoluton associate for the Farley Hill area. So I certainly would say that we've got ambitions to do a project that is just as brilliant in Farley, but we're keen to hear a new idea from a new person, and it wouldn't be right if we were the ones dictating, it has to be a street art project or it has to be a film. We want to make sure that it's grown from local artists, local voices, and the things that people are really passionate about.
Yeah, that's what I was also going to lead on. Like, it can be basically anything that's creative.
Yeah, and that's, especially for me with my background working in theatre, that's something that's really exciting about Revoluton, because I think it's not really... realistic to split a lot of the art forms a lot of the time. You can see incredible pieces of theatre that have videographers on board and have massive pieces of projection that are like integral to the way that story is told. You have sound designers working on theatre that brings in the whole element of music. It'd be really weird if you had a piece of theatre and everyone stood still, right? That's movement, that's dance. So it sort of seems unnatural to split the disciplines up as rigidly as they often are. And so what's lovely about Revoluton is that, yes, we work in dance, theatre, film, visual art, music, so much more. I always definitely forget at least one discipline. And I think actually the way we work then better reflects the way the industry operates today, because it's really rare now to meet a creative who's just one thing and just wears one hat or just has one area of expertise or specialism. Like a while ago, people used to talk about like the / generation. Like, I'm a director, I'm a producer, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. Like, everyone wears loads of different hats. They've got all these /. And I think that also goes for like art form and medium as well. Because really, if you're excited about being creative and you want to forge a career being creative, there's transferable skills across all of those disciplines. And also with digital, especially post-pandemic, there's a lot of organizations really interested in innovating online and in the way kind of stories can be told in a way that kind of lasts beyond a live event. And certainly at Revoluton, it's something that we're really excited to have just brought on board a digital producer to kind of help us kind of really move forwards in that arena. But, you know, when you start talking about all of those things, it makes sense to have organizations that do have an umbrella that is broader than one art form.
Yeah, because in that sense, when you say like, you know, the arts are normally kind of just like separated, like for example at school during like GCSEs, like, you know, you'd have to pick like either art or drama, and like would you be saying that, you know, most creatives, they don't just fit into like one box?
Yeah, definitely. And I think even if you feel like, oh, you know, your skill set is in a particular area, like I may well have done earlier in my career around theatre, you still have to be able to speak the language of other disciplines. So as a actor, you have to be able to understand the language a designer is using in order to really get a sense of the world of the play or the set of the film, or, you know, the whole reasoning behind you know, the creative decisions that have been made that are going to ultimately impact the way you choose to do your work. So even if someone really thinks, right, drama GCSE is for me and I absolutely hate the thought of having anything to do with art, it's really worth being curious and open-minded about those other disciplines, because sooner or later in your career you're going to have to learn a little bit about them. And I think also there's a similar split where it comes to, oh, are you on the stage or are you off the stage? Well, you know, shows don't happen if the on stage and off stage people don't talk to each other. Like, it's got to be collaborating. And what's actually kind of this leads me on to perfectly is that our next monthly mic drop masterclass, happening at the end of this month, so Wednesday the 29th of November, 6 till 9 at Marsh House, is all about collaborating with other creatives. And we really, our kind of whole mission with those masterclass sessions is that we want to have people from as many different creative backgrounds coming to those sessions, enjoying those sessions, because there is really no point you knowing loads of people who've got the same skills as you. Because as soon as you've got an idea and you want to make it happen, you need people who do different things to you, because otherwise you just get it all done yourself. And so our masterclasses are supposed to be a space where you can meet people who do those other skills that you don't yet know how to do. And that masterclass in particular is supposed to be about helping you kind of unlock those relationships and build those kind of, you know, hopefully long-lasting collaborations, so that those ideas that you're thinking about actually start getting out there and into the world.
Yeah, I haven't really thought about it like that before. I think that's very good for our listeners to hear, because yeah, I think it's always better to work as a team than solo, and you can't do everything by yourself.
100%. And I think earlier, I've worked with a lot of early career writers, and it's really common to hear people say, right, I've got this idea for a play, but don't worry, I'm going to act in it and I'm going to direct in it as well. And that's really admirable. And it's not to say that you can't.
Yeah,
you
if
may
you pull
be
that off,
yeah,
all to you.
It's great, but you also don't have to. That doesn't have to be the way that you do it. And it can also be something, what I often say in those situations is, fine, if that's what you want to do eventually, like be my guest, that's great, that's amazing. But even if it's just part of the rehearsal process, that you get another director on board or you get another actor in the room, you are going to learn something from seeing someone else play around with your material in a way that you wouldn't if that conversation was just happening internally. It just starts to untangle those threads and starts to kind of bring a level of clarity, which it just isn't possible to have if the dialogue is all just going on just in your mind and with no bouncing off of any other people. So even if your ambition is to be a fully like one person production at some point, that's all great, but I'd really recommend there being at least a kind of pilot phase or a research and development phase where you do bring other people on board.
So now could you discuss the organisation's approach to diversity, equity and inclusion and what measures are being taken to promote a more inclusive work environment?
Yeah, so there's lots of layers to this, I think. First of all, what I would say is that, you know, one of the most exciting things about working in Luton, and one of the reasons why I was excited to come to Revoluton, is because Luton itself as a place is really, from my perspective, a model for how way more towns are going to be in the future. Okay. Because Luton is a super diverse town, right? And as the population grows and develops over years and years, there are going to be more towns that start to look like Luton and have the wonderful mix of communities, backgrounds, languages, etc. that Luton has. And so what I was really excited about, and I'm from London originally, so, you know, Luton does really feel like home to me. It feels a lot more similar to where I grew up than potentially other areas. South London.
Okay. I'm not gonna, you know, I used to live in Wood Green and people used to say like, oh yeah, Luton's basically like Wood Green. But like I can see it in all of London.
Wood Green, yeah. Yeah. It's it's funny. Everyone's always got their opinions, don't they? Everyone's always got their opinions. But, you know, I think what I really see as important for us, we're saying we're a Luton organisation, right? That means that we need to be reflective of Luton in terms of not just our staff and our team, but also in terms of the artists that we're working with, the participants that are taking part across our projects. Like, it's our job to make sure that the breadth and diversity of Luton is like comes through in every single thing that we do in terms of the people that we have involved and on board. But I think equity is interesting within the arts because the arts, from my experience of working in them, it's quite an ableist industry, an ableist working environment, in the sense that there'll be lots of measures that are put in to support participants to be able to kind of take part regardless of any barriers they might be experiencing. But it can be really challenging for somebody to sustain a career in the industry if they have got certain things that they need to have in place in order to be able to work at their best, whether that be, from a kind of financial economic perspective, or whether that be from a disability and access perspective. So I think what's challenging in the arts sector is, you know, being able to consistently deliver a really, really kind of high quality range of programs and projects in an environment that is increasingly challenging to get funding, which means it's increasingly challenging to have people kind of being across more and more projects and all of that sort of thing. But being able to do that in a way that really values every single person and really supports every single person. So for me, there's making sure that the organisation really reflects Luton as a place in terms of the way we recruit and the way we, the range of art forms that we programme and the breadth of commissions that we give, the breadth of art forms and practices that we have represented and reflected in our work. But there's also making sure that everyone is able to enjoy and thrive in the work that they're doing, regardless of what challenges and circumstances that they may find themselves in, because I really see our work as care-fueled work. So it's our job to make sure that the artists we work with feel cared for. and the participants that we work with and bring on board feel cared for, not just by us, but also cared for by an art sector that has often overlooked and ignored them. And it's part of our job to change that narrative. But that's hard work on the people who are trying to do that work. And it's not easy. And it does come with challenges, and it does come with difficult conversations. So I really see my role and my job about making sure that the people who are doing that work are really cared for, and the kind of toll that some of that work can kind of take on them is relieved in as many different ways as possible. So it's there's always more that can be done, but I think, and also inclusion in particular, making an arts industry and a creative industry that really is for everyone, that's kind of an impossible goal, because of who everyone is always changing, and so it's always going to be slightly out of reach. But our job is to continue to kind of push on and really stretch and reach for that goal in both really kind of practical ways, through like systems and processes and how things look day to day, but I think also by really showing up and lending our voice to like wider initiatives and wider campaigns, and injustices as well when they arise.
Yeah, I would say that kind of that answer also does sum up a bit what Revoluton stands for. Can you tell me a bit more about Revoluton's long-term goals?
Yeah, sure. So I guess what Revoluton would really like to see is a creative industry in one arena that really takes Lutonian talent seriously, and Lutonian creative projects, and Lutonian as a kind of place of creativity seriously. So we want people to be looking to Luton and being like, oh yeah, there's stuff going on there.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? To really recognise just how much is on the doorstep. Because, London gets so much press about, oh yeah, this corner of London, that look how much music has grown from there, or look how much this has grown from there. And Luton's not far away.
Yeah, no, like we could actually be one of the zones.
100%, and it doesn't get the same press. And so that's something that we really want to see happen. But that's obviously quite an internal, like within the industry scenario. But wider, we also want to be part of using creativity and the arts to change the narrative about Luton. So I'm sure you're familiar with the fact that earlier in the year, there was a report saying that Luton is the worst place to live in the UK.
Yeah.
Right, okay, right. And, we disagree. We fundamentally disagree. It's not true. But we could just say it's not true, or we could be part of showing people why it's not true. And so we really do, like, longer term, want to be playing our part in successfully advocating for Luton, not necessarily as a place to live so that loads of people move here. It's not necessarily about that, but if people want to kind of see the sunnier side of life, like, that's great. That's all good. But it is about it's about making sure that people don't have the opportunity to basically talk from a place of ignorance about a place they don't know, and talk inaccurately and get it wrong. So what's really exciting is that through some of the projects that we've been working on recently, so another Revoluton associate project with brilliant local artist and filmmaker Sonia Chowdhury. She just made a film, and it was actually the premiere on Monday, a film called Made in Luton, which was all about like reclaiming that narrative and being like, you think you know Luton, this is Luton.
A lot of good. Hello, welcome back to AUK Radio. So we're back from the break, and I'm here with Maria from Revoluton Arts, and we're going to speak. Oh yeah, by the way, this is Kat here as your host. So we're just going to go a bit into Maria's personal journey. So before I ask you the first question, I did say at the beginning like what your career is, but can you just tell us what do you do? Who are you?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a producer and facilitator, and currently, as you said, senior producer at Revoluton Arts. But I realise that those words often like don't really mean much, and really producing is essentially project managing. So it's making teams of people make arts projects happen. So being across all of the details, from budgets to recruiting people to also being involved in kind of creative decisions, but it's really helping all of the other roles work together and making sure things get delivered on time to a high standard, and that there's strategy and good shiny things involved. Whereas facilitation is about delivering workshops, delivering sessions, and passing on, I guess, skills, practices, processes to whoever really wants to kind of pick up different specialisms and learn more about the arts world, arts practices, and the skills that you might need or want to sustain a career in them. So really, I spent a lot of my career delivering sessions in schools, delivering sessions outside of schools to different groups, including young people with experiences of really challenging migration, young people who've been excluded from school, also working with adults, older adults, so working in the arts and health scene with people who are living with a dementia diagnosis, but basically just passing on the joy of creativity and designing sessions where people can kind of get involved, enjoy, have a great time, and hopefully take something forward from them. So two hats that complement each other, but words that sometimes it's very easy to be like, what is that? What is that? What actually is it?
And can you tell us a bit about your journey into this role? Like, what milestones have you accomplished?
Yeah, sure. So when I was younger, I was pretty certain I wanted to be a professional dancer. I was like, this is definitely what I want to do. I absolutely love dance, and my whole goal was all about getting to dance college. That's what I wanted to do, get to dance college. And I got there, and I got to my dream dance college, and I actually left.
Okay.
Because I realised that I was like a term in, and I just wasn't satisfied with what the return would be for the work I was putting in. So and that's not to say that dancing isn't a valuable pathway, but I was basically told, right, you look this certain way, you're kind of this sort of height, and we think it's believable for you to play like Maria from West Side Story, or there was another like 3 other characters and this is what we see for you in the future. And there was something about me where I was like, I don't see why I'm doing 12-hour days, 5 days a week. And it was really, really challenging to kind of manage finances at dance college as well, because you don't always get the same access to loans that you do with like university degrees.
Yeah.
And you're busy all the time. So it's really hard to fit work in around it. So I was, doing 12-hour days at dance college, but I was also working wherever I could fit it in. So I was knackered. And I just thought, if that's all you see from me, like, I don't think that matches what I can actually do and what I'm capable of. And I'm not interested in kind of like the other thing that was often talked about was like, oh, you could be in music videos and you could kind of like, and I was like, why do I want to be in someone else's vision?
So it's like they
time?
kind of were putting you in a box.
That's it. And I thought, I'm not doing all of this work to basically give over all my agency of what my kind of career could look like. So I left, and to be quite honest, I was not sure what I was going to do, but I did know that I was really enjoying the work I was doing where I was teaching dance. And I was like, this is something like, I was coming home every time from a session teaching dance and I was like buzzing. Whereas I was coming home from a day of training and I was like, I don't understand where this is leading. Like, I was enjoying the training as a process, but I was like, it feels like I'm kind of living the kind of you see it on TV a lot, and you see it in films where like you see like, Step Up and stuff where they're in dance college and all that stuff, and it looks amazing. And I was like, I feel like I'm living that storyline, but I don't know where it's going. So yeah, as I said, I left, but I decided then to pick up as many hours as I could of teaching dance and facilitating. So I was facilitating drama sessions as well. I did loads of like children's birthday parties, all that, basically anything I could, just to get money in and just to keep busy. Because also at that time I had my parents being like, you've literally just dropped out of what you said it was your whole dream. What are you doing with your life? So I just kept really busy because that meant I didn't have to answer those questions. And whilst I was there, whilst I was kind of doing that, I'd already had my A-levels. So I applied to a uni because I was like, I just need to keep my mum quiet and I just need to have something kind of like penciled in. I've got to be honest with you, I could not have spent less time thinking about which uni I applied for. But my main priority was, listen, I'll just get a uni sorted because uni is never going to involve as many hours as dance college did. So
How many hours was dance college?
it was literally 12-hour days plus
Every
5 days.
day?
5 days a week, and then it gets busier. So then if you're in a show, it's like 6 days. So it's busy, it's full on. But that's great in terms of preparing your mind and your body to be a dancer. It's just challenging and I think it was an awkward time for me in the industry where the narratives that were kind of being set aside for me just were not ones that I was excited by. Whereas I my hope is you'd go to dance college now and they wouldn't be as reductive in terms of being like, you're from this background, so these roles are for you. I just don't think they could get away with that nowadays. Whereas when I was there, it was very much like, cool, that's you, and we can't imagine certain kind of possibilities for you. And I just thought, why do I want to be spending, like, just mentally it was really hard to be in an environment where people didn't see that much in you, and where it was kind of fine to be quite open about that. So as I said, I applied for uni. I got a place at Royal Holloway to do drama and philosophy, which I literally just picked because I did A-levels in drama philosophy, and I can't even remember, English literature was my other A-level, but I just did those A-levels at the time just to kind of tick them off whilst I was training in dance. And I was like, right, drama and philosophy, I'll do that because I don't know if I completely hate the industry and never want to do anything with it ever again. So I'll get that philosophy in there. Or if I do want to do something, so let's keep that drama door open. And I basically, whilst I was at uni, spent as little time at uni as I possibly could, because again, I wanted to be working. And so I was kept doing all my teaching and my facilitating, but took that then out to contexts beyond those that I'd been working with. So like I said, I've kind of took that to a lot of kind of community centres or to groups that were pinned as being challenging to engage with, which I never really agreed with. And it was all about sharing the skills that I had built, but also just sharing a love of creativity with those groups. But also I just was very at a stage where I was like, really open to exploring lots of different avenues. So I took on an internship at Finborough Theatre and I learned about general management. I learned about everything from like how tickets are sold to how you run a venue, like how you set up the kind of tech side of getting a show into a building and out of a building. I also ended up like co-producing a festival which was all about supporting communities to come together in the wake of the murder of Joe Cox, who was an MP who was sadly killed. And it was all about kind of supporting different communities to come together in the wake of that and sharing lots of different arts disciplines. I was then a company manager on a Shakespeare theatre show that toured around loads of pub gardens. So basically, I just jumped at loads of random stuff. And one thing I completely forgot is I set up my own theatre company.
Oh wow.
At that time, which sounds really grand, and it does elicit a wow, right? But that's not the truth. Really, I set up my own theatre company because I was like, I'm fed up of not being listened to, not feeling like I can make my ideas happen. So if the only way I'm going to make my ideas happen is by setting up my own company to make it happen, let me do that. And so that's what I did. And I'd be lying to you if I said that those shows were any good. But I learned so much from that process.
I like the honesty.
Honestly. But I think it was really, I think there's something about being able to take risks and experiment. And I feel really lucky that I experimented at that time with what I thought was possible. And the end products were not shiny and were not something that I'd commissioned today. But I arranged like a tour around libraries in my local area. I ended up getting us booked for like a festival in London and things like that. So there were lots of things where it taught me what bits of the industry do I like and do I want to focus on, and what bits just are things that aren't really within my wheelhouse. And that period of just kind of jumping from opportunity to opportunity helped me then get to a point where I was like, cool. I know that it's something around getting people involved in creativity that I want to do. And I ended up doing a placement at the National Theatre in their learning department, and then got a job leading the department at ATG, at Richmond Theatre. So ATG run loads of West End theatres, but they own Richmond Theatre, so I ran their creative learning department, and then worked at Kiln Theatre in their learning department before kind of bringing those skills to Revoluton. So it's a weird random journey. A lot of creative journeys I think are, but I think what I'm really kind of grateful for is that I was able to learn at every step. And it's really easy to look back and be like, and make it all make beautiful, perfect sense. But the reality is that it was really messy at the time. But sometimes it's just taking a step forward, even if you're not sure if it's the right step forward. And eventually, if you keep taking a step that sort of feels more and more right, it will make sense in the end. And I certainly feel like it makes sense now.
That's good. And do you think each one of these steps has made you more confident for your role today?
Definitely. I think what's great is that the more challenges and problems you face within any sector you want to work in, I think the more challenges and problems are less of a big deal. So the way I really kind of try and lead the team at Revoluton is that problems are only a problem if you don't tell anyone about them, because actually we wouldn't have jobs if there weren't challenges and problems to be solved. My job only exists because we're not yet at a stage where that vision that Revoluton has been achieved. Once it's been achieved, maybe my job no longer needs to exist, right? But because there is still work to be done, there are still challenges that come up. And I think really, for me, confidence at work often comes from being able to embrace whatever scenario comes up, and being able to embrace it from a sense of calm, but also in a way where it's like every problem isn't actually a comment on you or your abilities. It's a comment on the fact that there is an ongoing kind of process and journey that an organisation is going on, that individuals are going on, and you're just one very small part of that. And I often think when people are thinking about, what jobs they want to choose, that really one of the most important things to think about is what challenges do you want to spend your time dealing with? Because if you're happy with that being that a particular set of challenges, then you've cracked it. Then you're going to enjoy yourself. Because if you think those challenges are worth solving and are worth your time, then you're never going to get home from a day of work and be like, oh, what was the point?
I've never thought about it like that. I think people always think, oh, what am I interested in? But most jobs, as you said, it is about problem solving. So what problems would you say that you face in your job?
Yeah.
That made you interested for this career?
I think for me, we're not at a stage where the cultural sector accurately reflects society. And we're not at a stage where everyone in society feels like going to the theatre, going to a gig, or applying for a commission or being a creative is for them. And until that happens, I'm always going to be interested in the challenges that I see in my job. Also, the breadth of stories that are told through all of the different artistic mediums just aren't wide enough. And for me, anytime I can be in a role where I can be part of expanding the breadth of what people get to see, experience and take part in, that's time well spent for me. And especially where it's, here in Luton, where there is a clear narrative and a clear misconception that needs to be changed, that to me is energizing, because there's a real point and there's a real mission to the work.
So moving on a bit, because I have a little segment here, Vision of Luton. We have spoken about it a little bit before. And you just were saying now, we need to tackle these issues within Luton. So what is your ideal vision for Luton?
I think ideal vision for Luton is a place where everyone feels proud to be able to say that they come from Luton or have a connection to Luton, but also able to really like they don't even need to do that convincing anymore in terms of why they need to advocate for it. So I think ideally people are able to say, look, I come from Luton, and the response is, oh, that means you know this thing, oh, that means that you've seen this thing, oh my gosh, that's so cool, oh, and they come from there as well, do
Yeah.
you know them? Like, do you know, this is what I want to see, where there's the same kind of clout and status behind coming from Luton as we know there should be, because of all of the brilliance that exists there. And the more that arts and culture can be part of that narrative and part of the reason why Luton's perceptions of Luton change, the better.
Yeah, I agree, because would you say, I think I did like touch on it a bit, but like, schools, they're not really nurturing that. Like, they're not allowing people to see that. So you are kind of that stepping stone.
I think it's really challenging for schools because the arts curriculum doesn't really prepare you for a career in the creative industries.
No.
And even if you've got all of the right qualifications and you've ticked all of the right subject boxes, unfortunately the industry still works in a way where they want to know what job you last did and what is your actual work experience. And we all know that getting work experience in the creative industries can be really hard, and the reason it's really hard is because often teams are quite understaffed, and so the last thing they want to do is commit to having someone on board for work experience because they don't want to provide them with a bad experience. So I think, schools have a real challenging job, and there's a lot of initiatives within the sector where, people who are in similar roles as myself, we're really trying to work with schools at quite a strategic level to actually change the curriculum so that it starts to actually better prepare people for the industry. But in the meantime, as you say, we've got a whole generation of young people coming through who may well want to work in the industries. And yes, certainly my hope is that the Revoluton Young People's Programme and other programmes like it in other places can fill in the gaps with some of that technical knowledge, and even just filling in with the right language so that people are coming across in the right way and coming across as informed as they truly are in interview scenarios, so that people can really go out there and pursue those opportunities that are there, because there's a lot of vacancies in the industry and a lot of talk about skill shortages, and it only gets sorted if we start filling the gap and being holding people's hand with those first few steps that they need to get their career underway.
Yeah, I do think a lot of young people do need that support, and it's great to hear that Revoluton is one of those places. So can you tell, just to end, can you tell us a bit how young people or just people in general can get involved? Like, what platform should they go to?
Sure. So you can visit our website. So that's revolutonarts.com. On there, you will see that next Thursday we've got our brilliant puppet parade coming to Luton next Thursday, 9th of November. The parade starts in Bury Park and it ends in St George's Square. That's going to be a really kind of fun event for all of the family. But more specifically for young people, as I mentioned, our monthly mic drop masterclasses, the best way to sign up to them if you're interested in being a space where you can kind of meet other local creatives from different disciplines is by emailing jack@revolutonarts.com, and he can send you all of the information you need to be able to sign up to those sessions. The next one is Wednesday the 29th of November, and it's all about collaborating with other creatives, and it's led by an amazing director, Rebecca Go, who I'd really recommend you look into their practice. But it's not just for theatre makers, music, comedians, anyone who's got any practice, even visual arts, it's for you. We've also got our next producer hub on Thursday the 7th of December. So if you're aged over 18 and you've got a creative idea you want to make happen, or you want to make your creative career happen and you've just no idea how to do it, that session is specifically about finding your audience. But what's great about producer hub is, as well as the group sessions, you get access to one-to-one support which you can book via the Eventbrite link. But for now, again, if you just email jack@revolutonarts.com, he'll be able to send you all of the sign up information. And if you're a little bit further on in your creative career and you're looking, you heard me mention those £5,000 commissions and you're like, yes, that is a chunk of money I could do some real good with, then again, if you look on our website, revolutonarts.com, you can see the application process for our next cohort of Revoluton Associates. We are looking for creatives who are connected to Farley Hill and who are connected to Marsh Farm, who want to make something happen. And if you've got an idea, we definitely want to hear about it from you. But if you're thinking £5,000, that's too much for now, we've got some £300 commissions that we'll start to recruit for soon as well. So again, if you drop Jack an email, he'll be able to send you some application information for those of you who are looking for your first step in your creative career journey. The final thing I'll mention is if you're like, what about the performers? If I just want to perform, I'm not interested in putting a project together. We run quarterly open mic nights. Our next one's the last Friday in January. And if you'd like to perform, whether it be a song, a piece of spoken word, a film you'd like to share, you've got a stand-up set, again, drop Jack an email and he'll send you all the information you need so that we can add you to our lineup.
Thank you. I hope that everyone got that, got your note